A trailer for Hailey's on It has recently dropped, and people are either praising it for possibly being the next big story-driven cartoon, or find it pretty meh, because apparently the premise of a teenage girl saving the world has finally gotten tiresome for some people. But in the midst of those actually looking forward to the series, I've noticed an abundance of people calling it the next Amphibia, Star Versus, or The Owl House, and it's just so exhausting. Being one of the newest shows that Disney has slated to air, a few months back all we had was a poster of Hailey and her friend on a rooftop holding a bucket list of new activities to try, as well as this little robot which I thought was some sort of AI assistant like a mobile Cortana or Siri. So from there, I thought that the show was going to be about a teenage girl wanting to have done a number of activities with her bestie before they go off into high school or something. That premise alone was enough to pique my interest, but sadly, I feel a bit torn after watching the trailer. Hailey Banks is a teenage girl who doesn't like trying new things. She's already chalk enough to be a relatable character. But on New Year's Eve, a cybernetic woman from the future tells Hailey that in order to save the world, she has to complete her list, which includes kissing her best friend Scott. They also changed the font on the newer promotional posters, which I don't like at all personally. Something about the more blocky font just makes it feel hollow and generic, especially compared to the old font. It had soft curves, almost like it was handwritten, which would make sense because duh, it's a bucket list she wrote out. Personally, I prefer the older font. I found it a lot more charming and playful. From the trailer, I can understand folks' annoyance with it, but also excitement for the series. Annoyed that we're probably getting another boy-girl friend-to-lover situation that might drag on similar to Star Versus, but also excited to see aspects of Amphibia and the Owl House in the show, and that Hailey is tasked to save the world and will probably involve some time travel, shenanigans, nonsense at some point, but that's where my personal gripes are with the show. Why are the stakes so damn high? Hailey and Scott seem to be average kids who could have their own adventures in completing the list without this obligation of a random time traveler assigning such a daunting task to a teenager. If it was done so Hailey doesn't chicken out of completing the list, thus growing out of her comfort zone, then why not just have her best friend help her stay committed to completing said list? Now, I don't want to seem nitpicky here, but the whole world is at stake thing just seems like an unnecessary looming plot thread for this show, because instead of Hailey trying new things to branch out and grow as a person, it's now out of a predestined obligation with vague consequences. In which I guess one of the themes could be questioning destiny and what's predestined, but that's just so complicated when it comes to time travel. I hate time travel, I swear. This actually reminds me of the Netflix original Oddballs, where Echo's whole reason for coming to the past was to prevent a great evil from ruining the future. By the end of season 1, we learned that the villain was Toasty, James and Max's sentient electronic son. Don't question it, just keep up. So that episode ends with the knowledge that Toasty is capable of destroying the world, thus the future, and how does season 2 follow it up? Why, with them ignoring the threat or making one-off mentions of Toasty until the finale where they actually have to confront him, of course. Putting it off until literally the last second, which made absolutely no sense to me after watching the end of season 1, and thus starting season 2. The rest of season 2 was just more of season 1 with James and Max getting into episodic related shenanigans, which is what I personally enjoyed about Oddballs. An episodic slice-of-life comedy shouldn't feel the need to add, by Twitter's definition, trauma and dark themes to be worth watching. It should and can stand out on its own. Many have before it and many shall after it. At least from how it's marketed, Hailey's on It is being upfront about its premise and not waiting until the last moment to drop the proverbial bombshell of plot onto its audience. While I think the show could still be good without the whole time travel, save the world BS, I'm still willing to give it a fair chance. However, I don't think setting expectations for Hailey's on It to be the next big story-driven show or The Owl House helps in its favor either. If it so happens to share similarities to those shows, then fine. A lot of people were reminded of Phineas and Ferb when the first poster dropped, which I can see why. You got two kids in suburbia making the most of their time together. I'd rather see more of those type of discussions than calling it the next insert canceled show here. That's just building expectations in your mind for something that might not even happen. It's like when fandoms queerbait themselves, and then blame the showrunners for not validating their out-of-character headcanon couples not being in the actual story. The entitlement of fandoms is a whole nother conversation in and of itself. I ain't got time for that. Hailey's On It is set to air June 8th, and all I hope for is that discussions around it doesn't force other shows' identity onto it. I don't care how many similarities there could be to Gravity Falls, Amphibia, or The Owl House, because it's not the next past show. It's the first Hailey's On It, and should be treated as such instead of boiling down one creator's show to another creator's show. I look forward to watching it, and if you guys are interested, let me know. Have a good day. Thanks for hearing me out.